Yeah. With more people here in person. This might be the first time.
We're gonna.
We're good. All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please. Here.
Mr. Randline. Here. Ms. Greenfield.
Here.
Ms. McCready.
Here.
Mr. McQueen is absent. Mr. Romero. Here. Ms. Romero.
Here. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Bernardsville News and Courier News, filed with the municipal clerk and posted on the municipal bulletin board on December 15th, 2022. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the September 11th, 2023 meeting of the Bernardsville Borough Council. This meeting is being conducted in person in the council chambers in Borough Hall, and it is being broadcast live on YouTube and on Zoom to make it as convenient as possible for residents to attend the meeting. Members of the public who are here in person and those attending remotely on Zoom will be given the opportunity to comment at appropriate times during the meeting in accordance with the following guidelines. Members of the public will be allowed to speak during the open session and during formal public hearings on the agenda, including public hearings on ordinances. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker, which will be monitored and enforced by the borough clerk. Comments containing offensive, profane, or indecent language or language constituting hate speech will not be permitted. Remote participants will be muted unless they are unmuted by the clerk, and remote participants will not be able to unmute themselves. The clerk will mute remote speakers at the expiration of their 3 minutes of allotted time, or if they make any inappropriate or offensive comments. All speakers, whether in person or on Zoom, shall state their names and addresses before making their comments. Speakers on Zoom shall activate their cameras so that they can be seen by members of the governing body and audience. Failure of the governing body to provide a live broadcast of this meeting or technological problems encountered during the course of the meeting that affect remote viewing and or participation will not invalidate this meeting or any action taken, including but not limited to the adoption of any ordinance, resolution, or motion. Okay, presentation, we do have a proclamation for proclaiming the month of September 2023 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. I need to read this.
So you can just mark it on the record.
Mark it on the record, and there's a copy of it if anybody wants to read it, but it's calling attention to getting those checkups. All right. Moving on, we have, gotta get back to where I was. Our first open session for items not listed for a public hearing. So if anyone in the public or on Zoom would wish to speak, please raise your hand. I see a hand up there.
No, Joanna Wissinger.
Okay, Johanna.
Joanna Wissinger, Washington Corner Road. I'm speaking on behalf of the Environmental Commission. I simply want to thank this is regarding the 267 destruction of that Imperium Buff and steep slope. I want to just thank all the people who worked on this very rapidly. It looks like we're a solution. There's a lot of cooperation, and especially want to thank the Works Department. I'm sorry, very sorry that energy and resources had to be spent on this. The other thing, in addition to expressing my gratefulness, because I do see this as a serious problem, I want to make sure that everyone understands that this is not just cycling. This is special. If you're not, you don't know about cyclocross, Google it, and you will see why why I'm concerned. Also, I just want everyone to know, there may have been a comment about, well, as far as they regenerate, it's very difficult to regenerate a new forest on a slope like that. Mother Nature does it, but it will take a very long time, especially since it has herbicides down. It's on a slope. The topsoil is being removed. So I just wanted everyone to understand how serious and why we came out to say it. Thank you.
Thank you, Johanna. Anyone else wish to be heard? Karen? On the radio.
Oh, with the
Yes, yeah.
Harry Hazelton, it's good to see everybody even on this somber day.
Address.
397 Weinberg, there you go. And very glad to see that the park naming is on the agenda for tonight. It was an effort spearheaded by the Trails Committee. We have collected signatures at the farmers market. We've collected signatures at Little League. We've got the local history room has helped us. Johanna Wissinger collected a lot of signatures in her neighborhood. We went up to Little League. The Brownschwagers were also stepped up and got a bunch of signatures for us, as did the listings up on Charlotte Hill. And I just feel like we've got 214 signatures with a wide swath of people, including quite a few people that are sitting on council now. And we look forward to giving this park a name that rolls off the tongue, that recognizes its history. And once we have a driveway and a sign, we'll be off and running, biking, hiking, walking, and sitting in the shade of blue Matlack's elm. So thank you very much for putting it on the agenda tonight.
Yeah, thank you for all your hard work on it and the research you did. Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I will close the public session. Moving on to ordinances. I mean, no one to. Well, we still have to have a public hearing, huh? Or can
I think since you're bringing it down, you just ask for them to move it.
okay, I'm gonna ask that no one move it. Because we have it redone further down.
Right.
And this was following the advice of the planning board to make it, not a conditional, right?
Right, you're making it a permitted accessory use
Permitted
rather than
accessory.
conditional use, which is.
Yeah. So that was on the planning board's recommendation, and that way, residents don't have to go to the planning board to have it registered, so. Nobody moving it? Nope,
And it's
All right.
As a divine.
God's on the vine, okay. Moving on to the next, I will open the public hearing on ordinance 2023-1976 prohibiting drive-throughs in the downtown zone district and supplementing and amending Article 12 of the Borough Code entitled zoning. And this is one of the requirements of our transit village application. We have an application in to be designated a transit village, which then makes us eligible for grants for the transit village area, which I believe is 2 miles around the train station. One of the things we used to have, we prohibited in the original ordinance drive-throughs with the exception of pharmacies. So we've taken out the exception. Those that are here are grandfathered, but the idea of the transit village is that people walk, they don't drive. So we don't want to encourage driving by having drive-throughs. So that's what that's about. Anybody on the public wish to be heard on this ordinance? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Chad, do you read that one?
Sure, I'll move past ordinance 2023-1974 on final reading and adopt as follows.
76, 77.
Sorry, I just got off the red eye. I'm a little,
Oh, red eye.
yeah.
You have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Edelman?
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield?
Yes.
Ms. McCready?
Yes.
Mr. McQueen?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Ms. Amer?
Yes. All right, the rest are for introductions. Jay, you want to move the first one?
Sure. I moved that ordinance 2023-1977, amending ordinance 2022-1911, which appropriated $60,000 for library building and public restroom renovations, be introduced by title, passed on the first reading, published according to law, and a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning at 7 p.m. on Monday, September 25th, 2023.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention. All right. Christine, I do the next one.
I move that ordinance 2023-1978, amending ordinance 2023-1972, which appropriated $100,000 from the sewer capital improvement fund for engineering costs for the Pista grate replacement, be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning at 7 p.m. Monday, September 25th, 2023.
I'll second. All in favor? Opposed? And I think this was just a change in, we had a very rough estimate, now we have an accurate amount. Jack, you can do this.
I'll move ordinance 2023-1979, prohibiting smoking in outdoor dining areas in the downtown district and amending article 12 of the Borough Code entitled zoning. The introduced by title passed by first reading, published according to law, and a public hearing is scheduled beginning at 7 p.m. on Monday, September 25, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions, none. Okay, Gina?
And before I just move on real quick, I just want to make sure, because I haven't seen the language, that also would prohibits vaping as well.
It's next.
Yes, it does.
I knew that.
Jane?
I move that ordinance 2023-1980, adding a definition of smoking to include vaping to section 38 of the Borough Code, which prohibits smoking in borough buildings, parks, playgrounds, recreation areas, and vehicles, be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning at 7 p.m. Monday, September 25th, 2023.
I'll second.
Okay, and this, you said something.
This is the thing I did. I really was.
Yes.
Today. It's not entitled because we changed it last second.
Right, so it doesn't fit by the back as well, good. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Diane, what's your next one?
Finally, I move that ordinance 2023-1981, making detached accessory dwelling units a permitted accessory use in the R1 and R110 zones, and supplementing and amending Article 12 of the Borough Land Development Regulations entitled zoning, be introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning at 7 p.m. Monday, September 25th, 2020. 2023, sorry,
I'll second.
All right, and this is the replacement for the one that died on the vine, so, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to resolutions, are there
We have an
any?
additional ones, I'm sorry, Mayor.
Oh, sorry, yes, there was one on the table.
Yes, I apologize.
This is to introduce, right?
Yes, it's to be introduced.
No, I think.
This is just for an introduction, correct, Jack?
Correct.
And it doesn't have an ordinance number, yes.
It does not.
Nicely, so
We can't do this as a resolution, is that the ordinance?
then we're gonna do both,
We'll do a resolution later in the agenda.
yeah,
Authorizing this specific event.
for a specific event, yeah, this will be in general for future events, so we don't have to listen to have everyone each time it comes up. The number, 1982.
So are we in, do we introduce it first and then, I have two questions.
Sure,
Introduce it first or?
oh, yeah, we can introduce it first, Al, why don't you do that?
Sure, I move to introduce ordinance 2023-1982, an ordinance concerning consumption of alcohol beverages in public places, supplementing and amending chapter 3 of the Borough Code entitled Police Regulations.
All right, yeah,
So my questions are,
Does it have to be introduced by title, first reading for that part?
oh, yeah,
No,
blah, blah, blah.
Introduced by title, passed on first reading, published according to law, and that a public hearing be scheduled for a meeting beginning on 7 p.m. on Monday, September 25th. We're doing it? Is that right?
Yeah,
Thank you. 2023.
Also saying.
okay, so my questions, Jack, are for you. I have, so one, and I think we just answered this with Diane's question, but regardless of what's in this ordinance, every time this is used or requested to be implemented, the council has to approve by resolution.
That's correct.
Okay, and then, is there any way or something that, because like, even the borough itself isn't mentioned here, it says quasi borough. And we're like listing specific entities. Is there any way to just make it a little bit more broad? So that we don't have to come back and keep modifying
I
this?
thought of that, but I thought it would be better to make them come back, and we don't want to make it too broad. But we certainly can.
Yeah, so I'm like, if, and that's why I asked my first question first, because I'm like, if they have to come for a resolution regardless as
Right.
a then,
Now, the other thing is the ordinance is currently written only allows one event per year. So we may want to revisit this, but I wanted to get this so they could have the upcoming event.
Yeah.
So the only change I made was adding.
I mean, I was thinking
And
too,
Main Street.
in light of Main Street Bernardsville just becoming Main Street Bernardsville, I don't even know if that's like the legal entity on paper, right? Like what we're putting in this ordinance. So that was what I thought about.
You know, it would be so hard, I think, to define what is
Yeah,
a quasi-borough entity that. But we could certainly change it, but that's the reason I did it.
yeah, right. Well, and again, if any of these organizations change, we can amend it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so let's go through that.
So this, I have a question. This wouldn't include like, you know, the baseball group or football? Or
No,
anything like
that's
that?
why I was saying.
I
like
would
super
call
specific.
it quasi.
No, I know, but what if they wanted to do that?
They'd have to come before the council.
And for,
And we'd have to update the ordinance.
we have to update the ordinance
Right.
or could we do a resolution?
We'd have to update the ordinance because the ordinance, the general ordinance says no alcohol is permitted on borough property.
Yeah.
No, I know, but
So
let's
so
say,
the first exception was the fire department, because they wanted to have an event approval to have it every year. But then the library came in next, and so it's kind of been added on, but I think we should revisit it, and look at the whole thing.
To Diane's point though, then I now understand where you're going. If it's affiliated with the town, why can't we just write this now so the resolution is sufficient? Because resolution still has to come before us. It's not like it's.
Yeah.
Let's introduce it tonight, so their event is not in jeopardy. Okay. And then.
can we go back and look at the whole thing?
Ideally, it says
One
unless
time.
approved by council by resolution.
I'll distribute the whole, I'll circulate the entire ordinance, because there's a lot in there, but I didn't want to make a whole lot of wholesale changes, you know, on the fly tonight.
So when you consider recreation also asks, right, for various events, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of Claremont.
But I think the
Yeah.
borough's not bound by its own ordinance, so they can do it.
Right,
Right.
it's us, right.
Right, it's these other non-borough entities.
So, but can we, without having to reintroduce that, if we struck Main Street Bernardsville as an entity and said any borough affiliated group, can we do that at this point? Is
But then you have to
Well, that's
define
not-
what is that.
Well, baseball is not a borough.
affiliated
Well, yeah, we are.
without
I
definition?
suggest we introduce it tonight, let it die on the vine, and maybe at the next meeting, look at the whole ordinance. There's a lot in there you may want to change. This is just a one section, and all I do is add that.
Okay, good.
And because time was of the essence.
Thank you.
Next year we have work session, really.
So we have a motion in the second.
Yes, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we now have resolutions. Any that you want to discuss separately?
Yeah, I want to ask a question. We have 2 police officers being appointed. I'm assuming that still maintains our current level of.
The replacement.
Yes.
They're both appointed.
Yes.
Got it. Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Thank you.
Now I want to recognize ordinance 178. Oh, sorry, resolution, because I think Diane, you guys worked very hard on this, and I'm very proud to say that's our first female police officer.
Yes, it is.
And it's great, we need her.
Awesome work, Diane, and everyone in public safety. And then I have a question about 173.
This is just adding, we're adding Little Brook,
Little Brook Extension,
which is county owned.
did they want us to, that one?
I think it wasn't on the original, it's always been on the list, but we have to go and have the county sign off
Okay.
before we can add it to the list, so.
And then 175, we should thank the 3 volunteers for the service.
Yeah, that's great, we haven't had 3 come in and go at once like that before.
Audrey Panic, Lois Orton-Rick, and Stephen Orton-Rick. They must be twins.
No, their husband and wife.
Oh. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, great. Anybody else? All right.
I move that resolutions 23-169 and 23-181 be adopted.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. McLean,
Yes.
Mr. Creed,
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield,
Yes.
Ms. Greenaway,
Yes.
Okay, mayor's update. It was an interesting, I was contacted by the Integrated Community Project, which is ICP. And they're about increasing accessibility for people with disabilities. And what they asked for us, they're in 9 different counties, and it's about just finding out what towns have, making you aware of where areas where you need to improve. So it was an hour-long assessment that I took part in. They were actually, when I started talking to her, we do have a lot of accommodations that, more so than I would have thought originally, when she asked questions. The 2 big areas where we fall short is transportation, and some of our parks are not accessible, but we're working on that. We got the path coming, and so it was an interesting experience, and they have a toolkit that we can look at. So as we do things, we can look at where we can add accessibility. We had a wonderful senior barbecue and bingo at the pool. Surveyed the people that were there, where Leah and I are building a database so that we can reach out to those people more often. We asked them if they'd be interested in the senior club that maybe met once a month, and they could come up with ideas of what they would like to see. So that's part of what the Mayor's Wellness Committee is working on, is making us age friendly. Nancy and I interviewed the candidate for the planning board secretary and zoning board, and I think, when is she starting? It's pretty soon.
25th.
25th, yeah, so.
How long have it overlap for me to decide on? How long is the ramp gonna be before she's on her?
She's overlapping with Frank
Frank.
for a week. Yeah.
So we did cancel the meeting this week, so I
Yes.
just want to make sure that.
Yeah. Walter Lane, who's Mr. Wonderful at the county for buildings that we need for planning, and he facilitated a meeting with Stephanie Hunsinger of AARP, so that we could review the process of how to become an age-friendly town. Which actually, it's a 5-year process. We have to file an application. There's a whole planning process with it, and she's going to be sending information because we want to work towards that. We're actually an age-friendly county, but there are not any of the communities have done it individually yet. So I did my 10th wedding, officiated at my 10th wedding. The chief and I, as well as the chiefs and mayors of all the districts in the school district, were invited to the last Board of Ed meeting, and they invited us and acknowledged us, and we all got little certificates, which I thought was really nice. It was an initiative by the new superintendent. I met with Max Bozak to finish up his Eagle Scout paperwork, and I guess all the bamboo is gone, is it? You noticed? That was his project, was getting rid of the bamboo at Polo Grounds. I attended a charity baseball game at Kiwanis Field, which was celebrating the 5th anniversary of the Little League team. Yes, they were Little League then. That went all the way to the state championships. Jack Daler, who is Don Daler's son, founded. It's amazing. If you get a chance to Google Out of Bounds, it's a website he created, and it's to fight the stigma of mental health issues with young athletes, because he had been sidelined for a fairly long time and wanted other athletes to know that, it's okay to suffer through that. And he actually does a TED Talk that is unbelievable. So yeah, which you can find on the Out of Bounds. Very impressive. And I guess he's a senior this year, I think. Really marvelous. I was one of the speakers on the 31st at the overdose awareness ceremony at Community in Crisis. They do a wonderful job every year with a presentation, and you probably saw the signs of the 50 people who died last year of overdose. So it's actually down. I think it was 54 last year. So some progress. Since the library had to cancel their 9/11 ceremony, I don't know if anybody drove past the firehouse. Did you see?
Yeah.
that lovely display they put out there, that was really impressive. And Hardworks did something this morning as well. But I just wanted to take a moment to remember the 2,977 people who lost their lives. And our own 2 people from Bernardsville, which was Allison Horstman Jones and Thomas Rayleigh. And when we had the ceremony in the past, I always share, and I'm going to make you listen to it. It's a poem from Hardworks, a quote that they had when they first founded. It says, in the weeks and months following the terror attacks on the United States, our only intention was kindness. Our only motivation was love. Our only goal was comfort. Our only desire was connection. Our only agenda was fellowship. And our only reality was aiding each other. May we always remember those who lost and continue to honor them through acts of service and kindness. So, all right, that was me. Nancy.
I just have 2 things. One, we are starting, there will be a box downstairs for food collection for food stuff 2023. I get to do it every year. So that we're collecting until October 14th. And the second thing is to say that unfortunately, the Motor Vehicle Commission failed twice again. The first time apparently their mobile vehicle is like a camper and the sides come out. And that's where all their computer stuff is, and the sides wouldn't come out, they were broken. And they tried for a couple hours to fix it and they couldn't fix it. So that was on the 29th, and then they were supposed to come back that Friday, which I think was like the 1st, I guess. And the truck was still broken. So they said that they contacted everybody by email who had signed up and gave them a letter that said that they could go to their local office without making an appointment. So it really doesn't save you the trip, but you don't have to make an appointment. So did you get one? Because you were signed up.
I did not.
You just didn't hear from them.
I think the entire township did a waiver on the next vehicles inspection.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's just sending the.
Yeah.
It's the.
They came, but they couldn't operate. No. They were.
Nancy, is the motor vehicle department, I'm not familiar with the state law. Are they private? There was a point that some of them were private.
They're privatized, so they're a commission or vehicle commission.
So who
they're
would we
still-
go to talk about like the lack of service? Is that to the state, like our
Yeah.
state legislature?
Assembly.
Is it possible for us to cut a letter or something like that?
Yeah, I was thinking, Assemblywoman Dunn's office had helped me set it up originally. I was thinking of contacting her to let her know what happened. And a friend is just saying she thinks they set up tables.
They were able to help with some stuff. They were in the library and they were working in the lot and they were working inside the library for a while. I don't know if it failed after that or before that. I don't know. I wish I could remember the details. I'm sorry.
I don't know, like he contacted me, the person who was in charge of, who was here. He contacted me, they were supposed to be here at 10, he contacted me about 11:30 and said they were leaving because they couldn't get it to work. So I don't know what happened inside the library, but he did not tell me that.
Okay.
Maybe they help people get on the site.
To set up appointment.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to get some details from them for exactly what happened and if they, I honestly don't even want to ask if they want to come back. So, but I think that, I do want to hear from them, like exactly what they did and, then just send something off to someone done just to let her know that. Yeah, and I did see they're supposed to be all around Berkeley Heights,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like tons of towns around, so, they probably, I know when they had to cancel in June because they didn't have a cell connection. They couldn't come back until August. And so, the end of August, so now I would imagine it would be free again until like December or something, so, and then they probably get snowed out.
So anyway, to be continued.
Yeah, and last year with food stock, the library also put collection boxes out, so I don't know if you want to do that again, but we appreciated it last time. You've got a lot of stuff too.
Yeah, no, we're looking,
Oh, great.
when they had success with the Girl Scouts doing their school supplies, that's still there.
Wonderful. Okay. Moving on, in 8C, we have commercial use of public parking. And this has been, we had a email from one of those businesses about the use of the post office lot by MV, that their valet service has been using it. Are they paying for that? No, it's because
Public.
it's a public lot, so anybody, I mean, if you're going there, you could park there, so it's just somebody's parking your car for you. So I guess we talked about, I don't know, what, Jack, what legally do we?
Yeah, we talked about it during the Jacob Brett meeting. And really, they were parking, that thing was parking their cars there, we had an issue, but they're parking, members of the public's cars. So I don't see the difference between people parking their own cars or the valet parking still. So the mayor came up with the idea of coming up with a time limit in there, which would restrict it and, keep it open and flowing.
Yeah, we were talking about, 2 hour, the ones against the wall are 2 hours, I think the other ones are shorter, but they're not, it's not being enforced,
Right.
so. Unless we, don't wanna have a policeman sitting there marking, putting marks on tires. The other option is you put it in meters.
Well, they have this thing called Park Mobile. I don't know if anyone has seen that in other places in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Where essentially it's an app. I've got my app up here. You pull the spot, put your the spot number, you put your license number, you pay your fee, and you don't have to pay the exorbitant amount in meters. I don't know what they charge the borough.
We talked about that during the Jacob Brett, that's one of the ideas. It probably makes a lot of sense that they have to pay even a nominal amount.
So, well,
Well, you do it like the first half hour is free because people are going into the post office and doing their business. You don't want them to have to pay to just use the post office.
Could you do it Somerville guys, it's not all different meters, there's the one meter you go in and you see.
yeah, that's what this Park Mobile is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're using, I understand if I were to park my car there, but the fact that they're using a company to relocate cars from their property to the borough property and parking is not, there's nothing we can do there.
I don't see the distinction because it's still not their cars.
Right,
So if you were to park it there yourself,
Right.
right.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's just that what I think, so the two complaints I've heard, number one are the fact that it's being used by, but being used by a valet company. The second is, and this one, I think a little more unsubstantiated. Well, that one, and also getting yelled at that the lot's reserved. And I don't know that that's actually occurring. I've heard it, but.
I've also heard you are not allowed to park in there yourself. And no.
No. I'm talking about the library, or not the library, the post office.
I've also.
So hearing from the people saying that you can't park there, get towed, because they want the spots open.
Right.
So some towns set up these elaborate, complicated bureaucracies to do it. They charge the big merchants fees and they give them permits and. I'm not sure you want to get into that.
Are there certain spots that MV can park cars in? Because I've heard a number of complaints from businesses that they go on their break and they come back and there's no parking for them, the employees of businesses.
Well, the employees aren't supposed to.
Or the owners.
Do you mean the employees parking from MP or do we?
No. I'm just talking about the people on 202 who own businesses. They're not allowed to park their cars.
They're not supposed to be in that lot, they're supposed to be in Abilene or there's a lot of spots that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is gonna happen when they work there and where they supposed to travel?
And I guess the train station. Because they pay for their spots, for their employees.
And
They
the
used to, I don't know if they do anymore.
They may use their own lot for their employees, I don't know.
Can we find out how much Park Mobile would cost us to do at the post office and the train station and the library?
Do the library too.
Yeah, the one we have at the train station never seems to work.
Yeah, well, we have plenty of
We have.
borough-owned lots.
It's almost broken.
Yeah, we used to sell permits.
We still do
We
that.
still do, but we can get rid of the
Well,
entire
that's the
permit.
other side, though, I think
We can get rid of the whole permitting thing and they would just pay to park on a daily basis.
Yeah, and what
They
the
can do
first
that.
hour is like free though, right? That's, I know
You
that's
can-
in some of
It's
the.
not in other towns that I've visited.
So weird.
Just to clarify, just to clarify, we currently have an ordinance process.
Yeah.
And we have an hourly process for a daily lot, so you wouldn't get rid of the permit process.
Right.
Right now, you can do that, if you wanna come up and pay a part for the day, you can.
Okay.
So, like, you wouldn't need to get rid of the permit process for the
You're
commuters.
talking about the commuters at the train.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, you have to do that.
Yeah,
Because that's, 8 hours.
Yeah,
So I think we should meter it. I'm not sure that we should have anything for it.
Well,
Well,
don't
no.
say Peter, because there's people are gonna picture it like.
No,
They have to- Yeah,
Because you can
Our
say,
ordinance does not include personal slot at the present time.
what doesn't?
Parking lots.
there's sign,
Includes, railroads, Quimby's, non-area.
Or permits, I mean, for what?
And the library, those four, but not the personal.
It should be what?
Limited time on the parking.
Well, there's a sign in Glenwood, if you park against the wall that says 2 hour maximum.
There's a underlying.
I wonder if the post office put that up.
Probably.
There is an underlying issue here, which I think Diane brought up, though. Employees of businesses, if the businesses have not allotted for the parking on site,
They're supposed to.
they're supposed to have.
They're supposed to have, paid, because they're, right, Anthony, don't they?
They're not paid anymore, because, we made the no charge for merchants, but they're supposed to get, decals for their employees to park in the Emerald lot, there's no charge anymore for them.
Okay, but they could also park in the train station if that was closer to their business.
It's kind of obvious that no one's parking
They
there.
park at the train station $300 though for the calendar year. If they were gonna get a decal for that.
But they can park in.
They could park in the kiosk spot for the day.
So that's
off the top of
$15,
$20
$20 a day.
money, right, every day, yeah.
Yeah,
Do we need to think, I think we should also think, I don't wanna like throw everything into the pot here, but we're plausibly have a lot more restaurants, et cetera, coming to town over the next few years. So I just think we should think about this comprehensively.
Yeah.
Not just the immediate solve for MV. Maybe there's an opportunity if we, with the new, all the new planner coming on or something, to take a look at all of our parking in the downtown zone and come up with some comprehensive solutions, both for employee parking and also looking at the overlap during the time of day with commuters versus people coming for restaurants. Because it's exciting. The Burke restaurant, et cetera, there's just gonna be a lot over the next few years.
Yeah.
The Burke's good, I think it'd be really busy. Nancy, that new planner is now on he's working for us, right?
No, we.
No, he's the redevelopment attorney. You're gonna talk about planner.
Yeah, we have planners later.
Okay, so but I know we met him a couple weeks ago, so that is not officially a go yet.
No.
No, he's the attorney.
He's the attorney.
All right.
The attorney.
I agree with Al that a comprehensive plan would be great, but I also want, one of the things that hit me when I got this email about the specific location is that there are businesses in that area that only operate in the daytime. So lunchtime, I understand, that's kind of a little dicey, but the evening time, like dinner time, there's an entire empty lot of a chiropractor and a dentist that's pretty much closed, and there's 40 spots in it. I know, so this is exactly what I'm saying, like, so local people kind of know that, and they park there. But what we're talking about is those people who are visiting,
Don't know that.
we don't want to turn them off, so that the first time they come to MV, they get so frustrated and they never come back. So if we could solve it in some way, and I think the valet system works. And local people, residents, don't really valet because they know they can just go right up to the library.
And I also know there's an issue, I mentioned this to Christine Diane before, but about just pointing people to public parking lots, like there isn't a sign that we see.
But those are not, those are private ones.
Maybe, though, but I'm just saying, in
Yeah,
general,
we need wayfinding, right?
yeah, you go to other towns and it's like,
Yeah.
what's happening over here, you know?
We talk about wayfinding.
And if there's a way to encourage sharing somehow, I mean,
Well, we passed an ordinance which, if they did not have on-site parking, they could,
They're supposed to.
they're supposed to pay to use another lot.
Or get them to sign off on, yeah.
But
And I
that's,
think-
that's new, there's another change, look at site plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he would.
In the past, the planning board required restaurants or businesses to get parking permits for the Hamilton offer their employees.
Yeah.
But they never park there.
yeah,
So we had cracked down a few years ago, but they want the permits, the employees still can park there.
Yeah, but you know, right behind, there's Dr. Chang's office, which has a huge parking lot. And I know, I think the valets were using it without permission. And Dr. Chang stopped that, but you know, there should be an opportunity for them to come up with some kind of an arrangement that he could valet there and pay him a certain amount or whatever. I think they could, it might be worth putting those two people together.
I mean, in the future, we talked about, right, with the banks, and, you know, the banks aren't used after 5 either, so.
Yeah, down to along 202.
Yeah.
So.
Get a little golf.
But it has to be a definite arrangement in writing that everyone knows it exists. Can't just,
Yeah,
well,
that's
we're
liability, it's
kinda.
a lot, it's a property, like.
Yeah, no, there has to be a negotiation.
I think a planner that's experienced in them, that's, if you go to Morristown, like Sterling Tavern, you park across the street in the bank and it says specifically, this is for, and it lists.
Is that a planner or is that the engineer? Who's our traffic and who's the engineer? That's it.
But a planner.
The planner can do that, yeah, the whole picture.
Do the whole.
Yeah, I think,
And I think that's what Chad was referring to before, was the engineer, so parking and
Oh,
traffic.
you were talking about the.
Yeah, I'm literally working on about 8 hours sleep this Thursday.
yeah, that was Mark, yeah.
Yes. That's what I knew what you were talking about.
But, you know, we can get word. Short term, if, I could just suggest short term, I will reach out to Dr. Chang and MV and see if they can't come up with an arrangement. And then long term, Al's suggestion, I think for the planner is where we go next. In a whole market plan. Yeah. All right. Okay, moving on to 8D, which is request for tree planting.
Oh, Diana, I think we talked about this in.
Yeah, can I just come out and shake shade tree? For her to get a tree? We're taking down, to do the sidewalk on, West Street, we're taking, west, yeah, we're taking a giant tree, which is encroaching on the road. And she is requesting, replacing another tree on the property.
But it's in the right of way, isn't it?
Yeah,
But we're gonna help her.
she just bought the house and she was all excited about this
Oh.
tree. And then she's finding out that it's gotta go.
I think Renee is the shade tree,
They don't hurt,
to have her put it on the next shade tree agenda.
they don't need.
They don't need.
Yeah, that's what she was complaining
Can you
about.
talk for yourself?
Well, maybe.
So are they looking
for?
I'm confused, so they're looking for, we're gonna take the tree, we have to take the tree down.
Yes.
We have to put the sidewalk in.
Yes.
They're looking for variance to put a tree, they
No,
want,
She just wants a tree.
She just wants a tree.
Buy a property.
okay, but I thought there was a question about in the right of way.
No,
She
you're gonna
doesn't
know whether or not
Trees in there.
It's gonna be on first, okay, all right.
So we'll put a tree on her property.
Yeah,
She really wants.
She just wants her.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Just want her-
I just didn't
Can
understand that.
we-
No replacement.
I think she spoke to Renee already. I don't think shade tree maybe really exists.
They don't.
Right, that's the.
Can we approve the funds? That's really the issue.
I mean, I think.
The residents are on that.
If you have any questions, that's one of
The residents are
on Zoom. I know you.
Oh, West Street.
If you have any questions for them, they're on Zoom. You know, I just.
I mean, I would assume here that if the shade tree was in existence, Public Works would plant the trees,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you just approve money for a new tree,
Yes.
we could ask.
They might have money already.
Shade tree has a fund.
They already
No, I'm
have
saying,
fund.
if you approve the money from the shade
Yeah.
tree, let it, if you
They
say.
can authorize shade tree, and Public Works can do the work.
Yes.
Yes,
Because they have the budget.
let's do that. Do we have a
So-
number in mind of what we think we need to appropriate?
How big a tree are we talking?
I mean,
It's
I
one
don't,
tree that kind of splits. So
Like-
it's-
like, that's a big tree.
Yeah,
It's not that big.
Right, so,
But
I
it's
mean,
maybe
honestly, like,
one or two little ones.
I'm thinking like $500.
I was thinking 600, so
Okay.
Okay.
That goes, you know,
Is that
yes,
coming from the
if that is
shade tree?
sufficient.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coming out of-
Do we
yes.
need, Jack, do we need a resolution?
Yes.
Do I have a
Motion
motion?
authorizing tree at 22 West Street to replace the tree that's being taken down as part of the sidewalk improvements for an amount not to exceed $600 planted by Public Works.
That's fine.
But it probably won't happen until after the sidewalk. Yes.
Right,
Yes.
That's all.
Because you gotta get rid of the other tree.
Yeah.
right,
I'll make that motion of what Jack said.
Yeah, I'll second.
okay.
Do we need anything about specificity? Because I'm fine with the homeowner choosing the tree as well.
No, shade tree should choose. the
Well, but there's no shade tree,
tree.
so
Yeah,
I'm
but it's
thinking,
in zoning. Shade tree was moved into, wasn't it moved with Renee into?
Well, we're gonna
zoning now?
see
yeah,
the shade tree.
So there's no rush on this one though, because we're not gonna put it, in. So why don't we just let Jack write it and. Right, then we can just do it.
and plus I think John knows a lot of trees, Joanne is on the call.
Yeah.
She- I assume he's
environmental
gonna
commission, green team, somebody can make a recommendation.
Somebody knows.
We don't have to.
So, I mean, I would, we were taking a tree off the right of way and putting it in somebody's property. I think the property has to be able to choose the frickin' tree on the property.
Well, I mean, they can choose, but people who know what grows in what shade or whatever would be
Yeah,
helpful,
what
so
soil.
Sure, so does a,
we'll work it out.
all right.
All right, so we have.
Yeah, I just don't want to rectify the shade tree commission's what tree. I think the homeowner should have a say in what tree goes in the property.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yeah, so we have a motion and a second,
Yes, we do.
so just all in favor?
Isn't
Wait,
Jack gonna prepare
he's
this
gonna write it up for the minutes, right?
for next?
Yeah.
No, we're doing it.
We're just doing a motion.
We're just doing a motion, yeah. So all in favor? Opposed? All right, we got a tree. Okay, we now have the petition for 267 Brook, which is good because everybody messes up the number, so I'm glad it's gonna have a name now.
It's very confusing.
I know, because it was 271 and now it's 267. So it would be, and Carrie, can you just give us a quick rundown of who the Kirkpatricks were?
Yes, the Kirkpatricks came from Scotland in about.
Oh, yeah, maybe stand there so that people on Zoom can hear you.
Harry Hazelton, 397 Brook. So the Kirkpatricks, first settled in this area about 1732 from Scotland. They arrived in Delaware, they walked to Philly, and then they walked up to Bernardsville, and that's why it's really kind of cool that we've got this park where we have beautiful trails in the back that people will be walking. They were great walkers. They originally lived in a house across the street, which still stands. It was a log cabin, now it's a stone and frame house. That is just down the road and it's that little house right on the road across from Mount Harmony Road. That is the original Kirkpatrick house. And then in 1765, when David, who was a young boy when they had first come up, he married Mary McEwen, who lived somewhere in the Twin Lakes neighborhood, and they settled on the Packard's Corner in the house that's right now on that Kirkpatrick Park land that we have subdivided off. It started out as a stone cottage, and on the top of the lintel, it still says in that original section, D and MK 1765. So the house has greatly expanded around it. It was owned by the Squibb family at one time. So the Squibb pharmaceutical family, they were there. They were also at Dunster Squibb, and they were even at my house for a period of time. And so when they got this house like redone for themselves and moved in there, so it was much bigger. But the Kirkpatricks also served as like judges in the Continental area and First New Jersey Supreme Court judges, and also in the Assembly and the Senate. So they did a lot of public service, and they walked every day, every service to the Presbyterian Church in Basking Ridge, where they're buried in the cemetery, and you can find all their gravestones there.
Wow.
In short.
Yeah, boy, that's great, thank you
It's
so
sort
much.
of short.
Thank you for walking us through.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, so, would someone like to go, actually, we have to have a public hearing, so I will open the public hearing on naming the park at 267 Brook as Kirkpatrick Park. Would anyone like to comment on that? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Somebody like to move that, okay?
I would like to thank Carrie first of all, and I move that resolution 23-182, naming 267 Brook Road as Kirkpatrick Park be adopted.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Ambeline,
Yes.
Ms. Greenfield,
Yes.
Mr. McCready,
Yes, thank you, Carrie.
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mrs. Nair.
Yes.
All right, yes, thank you again. We have a request from the Friends of the Bernardsville Library to have a wine presentation and tasting at the library, so do we have a date on it?
October 26th.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all the petitions. There it is, October 25th, okay.
October 26th. 26th.
Oh, possible date,
After
okay.
hours.
Yeah,
Good with it.
okay,
Enjoy.
do we need to do a motion?
Yes, motion.
I'll move ADA's request for the Friends of the Bernardsville Library to hold the line for that presentation tasting at the White.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This may be a good time to do Burnsville Main Street.
Yes, let's do that one too. Okay, so that is for October 14th. For the little cart, right?
Yes, the mobile bar.
Mobile bar.
Mobile bar. Supports trailer.
And the deal is the mobile bar shows up at every councilman's house.
You'll have to take it up with Danielle, she runs the cart, so she's the one that's gotta back it in and do all the crazy stuff, so I'll take it up with her.
I think they mainly have it at the train station, yes, is that what?
Yeah, it'll just be parked there where we'll have the,
Where people register.
where the tourists will be departing from, so they can wait, since they have to be there at least 15 minutes before their tour time, then get some something to do while they wait for.
Yeah.
Sounds like a fun night.
It was great last year, so it's just gonna be better.
Yeah.
All right, do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion, for the the alcohol cart.
Liquor cart, oh, the car, yeah, that sounds terrible.
The bar on
Mobile bar.
Mobile bar.
Mobile bar.
Second.
All in favor?
Thank you.
All right, next is construction fees, and we've got these very big spreadsheets here.
Yeah, so I can explain them.
Thank
Thank you. So this is a request from the construction official for an update to the fee schedule. Best that I can tell, the fee schedule has not been updated since 2010. And the fee increases that he proposed. So the one sheet that you have, the smaller one, has the increases. It shows what is charged now and what he's proposing the charge to go to and how much of a difference it is. Most of the fees here are fairly reasonable. I think the average is about $15 increase.
One actually went down $5.
One went down $5, yes, and then there's a couple of new fees on there that, one's for electric vehicle charging. And then there's an electrical subcode fee that haven't been charged before. So the fees that he's proposing make our fees more in line with neighboring towns' fees. And but more importantly, the law requires that, and I'm gonna quote the New Jersey Administrative Code. It says that the fees, this is from the Uniform Construction Code, fees have to be calculated to reasonably cover the municipal costs of enforcing the regulations. So basically, the department needs to pay for itself, and it has not paid for itself since 2017. So that's what the big bunch of papers that we have there. I can summarize them for you.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yes, most helpful.
In 2017, the department came out ahead $87,000. In 2018, it might have had $1,450, so basically broke even, which is how it should be. 2019, it was negative 45,000, 2020, negative 155,000. 2021, negative 60,000, and 2022, negative 128,000. So it is definitely not paying for itself. And as you see on there, it shows the expenses and the revenue. The expenses have stayed moderately steady during the 300,000. The revenues, though, have come down. From 2017, they were 476,000, and in 2022, they were 244,000. So they've gone steadily down just about every year. So I'm not asking you to do anything tonight. I just thought we want to maybe talk about it, absorb the information that we have, and then if you're interested, we could introduce a increase ordinance on the 25th.
So, if you take the number of items that were done in this calendar building card last calendar year, any inputs, these input costs, are we break even? 'Cause I'm guessing the answer is no.
If you put the new.
So yes, if you take,
It's just a cover.
right, so if we're $120,000 in the hole, a $15 increase is going to cover it. So so you can take the same spreadsheet, take the revenue that was assigned that year, input the new revenue, see how that changes the forecast.
I could ask him for that.
Could you ask them to do that? Because I'm suspecting that these changes, I know Jeff Price, when we were working with Jeff, the year that it got closer to 60, then when after Jeff left, it looks like we converted some. I want to make sure if we're making an adjustment, we're doing it in an informed way. So if you can input this and figure out what the delta is.
Sure,
I'm suspecting these may not be large enough delta.
okay.
Yeah, something.
Go ahead.
I was gonna ask if the revenue, you said revenue has gone down, expenses have remained flat. Has revenue gone down because because less demand? Less permits, less,
Yeah,
I mean, it would make sense in 2020, I'm just wondering, has it rebounded back? So are we spending too much compared to revenue?
well, I mean, the expenses are what they are, there's not a lot we can do about those. So in order for DCA, for you to figure out what your expenses are, you have to calculate everything, what the rent would be over there at the library. Certain percentages of like the CFO salary, my salary, Anthony's salary, like all the employees that interact with this department, all
Yeah, I
the
can see
employees.
I can
I
see,
like what you've done.
I just think my question is that so we got full-time at direct charges, it looks like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5 positions and a half-time position. If demand has gone down and has consistently stayed down compared to 2017, do we need 5 full-time and 1 part-time position?
I don't think you have 5 full-time.
I'm looking at the percent construction, maybe I'm looking at.
Because all the inspectors are part-time. So, and there's, electrical, plumbing,
So the people, the 3 construction inspectors are not full-time inspectors.
and the construction official is also not.
I think maybe talk about that, bring it to the finance committee and kind of dive in a little bit on that. Just to make sure, because I understand, we want to make sure that it's right size for the need that we have
Yeah,
to grow now,
exactly.
especially coming out of the pandemic and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I don't know that there's a lot you can do staff-wise. I mean, we can definitely look into it, but you have to have all those inspectors, whether you have 100 permits or 1,000 permits, you have to have the inspectors, so you're paying them based on the number of hours that they work. So I'm not sure that is going to make a big difference. I don't know. I mean, I think this is evidence that our expenses has remained fairly stable. It's a product of the revenue going down, just people not taking out as many permits.
This is a revenue problem.
And so I think what Chad asked for is gonna be the key to it. If we took what they did last year and applied these new fees, see what the revenue would have been, and that will tell you where. Where you need to be or what the problem is.
I mean, if you look at, I'm just pulling one out here, right, if somebody had to have an in-ground pool inspected. It's $150. So by the time office paperwork, you're spending more than 2 hours as a borough on that tax.
Right,
And yeah, a lot of things put in over.
yeah.
So the right number may be $500. Let's figure out what the math is.
Okay, so, yeah,
Does the state, code require an hourly rate for the construction official too? Like a.
No, you could pay them salary. I mean, I think we calculated hourly, but I think I have to look into that. I know that they are. Well, even I do payroll.
Sorry, question.
Are they the inspectors? Are they paid hourly or, so they're hourly, right?
They're paid, salary for the year divided by 26, because there's 26 payrolls, not they get every payroll. So they're not paid hourly.
They're not paid hourly,
Construction.
okay, because the way they're in the salary ordinance, I think it is an hourly rate, but I guess they're paid a set amount.
They have a certain amount of hours.
So it's not hours, because they're not paid by the hour.
So I guess I could see whoever said that maybe we would get down to the detail, look at how many hours they have. Because if we're paying them for 2 hours, many hours, and they're not doing, there aren't as many inspections necessary, then that might be something to look at as well.
So again, I apologize for person who goes on to simplify this in a short-term memory. I know that we just approved a payroll system. That payroll system has the ability to assign hours by job.
You heard the time management system, we're gonna talk about payroll later. It does do it by job, yes.
So a goal could be, once this is up and running, I'm assuming that we're going to have employees assign time to jobs or tasks.
Well, it's not down to that detail where if a plumbing inspector goes to 5 houses, like those 5 houses are not in there.
They're not
We do-
itemized.
We do, no, they're itemized in a different system, but not the time management.
Let me ask you a different question and I'll ask it more precisely. Do we know per job, how many employees spend how much time in each one of these tasks? Electronically.
No.
definitely not, yeah.
I didn't think of that, just.
I mean, the other thing you can look at too at the finance committee is like a certain number of failed inspections, right? Because the more you have to go out, the more expensive it is. So something else to.
Yeah, all right, sort it out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Correspondence, hopefully we had any. Unfinished business?
Yes, I have unfinished business. So in the news recently, we've had lots of talk about Main Street Bernardsville and specifically Olivia's volunteer time. So I wanted to talk about the sustainability of that and what options we have. And I thought we should discuss it as a council and figure out what next steps we need to take. But how do we want to proceed? I think there's a couple of options and a couple of ways forward that we could go, but
Want to put it in the next
It
meeting?
is on the next agenda. That's when we were gonna really get into it. And if you remember, we did get this memo with the options of all the different things we could do. And so I think what we wanted to do is talk through them with Steve Grillo when he's here. So if you have questions, he's the person who can answer them.
Also, there's other options other than those options that I would like to
I agree.
explore. Any other options that anybody else might have.
Yeah,
And in terms of Steve Grillo, are we planning on having, we had a presentation, he's the one that put these together, correct?
Yes.
So is he coming to answer questions? Or, because
We asked him for some follow-up information. He's doing a comparison of other districts that are our size and that have SIDs and how they've done them, how they've structured them. He's also, I think he was doing something else for, that Nancy asked him to do.
he's here, he's also here.
And do we have the feedback also from
He's on the phone.
do we have the feedback also from the businesses? I
We
know
will
there's been
for
some work.
25th.
Oh, I think did I forward that to you? I think I forwarded it to both of you. He'd asked you to pick out which towns you wanted information.
Yeah, and then I went back to him and said, you know, it's not that important that there be a Main Street and a SID. Because that's not that as common. I said, I'd rather see comparisons of municipalities that are our size or smaller, that have SIDs and how they work.
Okay.
And so he was gonna do a comparison of assessed value for those towns. He said there were 9 of them. The assessed values, how many businesses, what they're paying, what their budget is. So we'll have all that for the next meeting.
Okay.
So I think, you know, tonight we don't really have the information. We can talk about it, but I don't know where we're gonna go with it.
Yeah, I just wanted to see what everybody on council wanted to do.
Might ask if something could be explored in advance of September 25th, because I won't be there. Yeah, so, the thing that came to mind was that the open space that residents pay now, it's like 0.02, or Jack, it's 0.02, I think.
Yeah, it's 2 cents.
So it's essentially like a similar type of, you know, allotment, except in this case, instead of the 2 cents going to open space, and I'm just saying in comparison, the whatever cents this turned out to be only goes to downtown. So if we were
to charge to downtown, you don't pay it.
exactly, so is there a way to make it so that the commercial downtown district doesn't pay open space anymore, but instead they pay?
No.
Why
Open
don't we just,
space tax was adopted by referendum,
Yeah,
and it's got to be uniformly applied across the borough.
so why couldn't we do a referendum for this to see if the residents would like to do something like along the lines that we do for open
You
space
could do a
for the
non-binding,
residents?
you could do a non-binding.
Exactly, but it's not about the residents. Well, it kind of is. Everything that Olivia does benefits every single person who lives in Bernardsville. So it is about the residents, and targeting just business owners is, I mean, the business, the building owners is,
This has been a little bit like my problem with like the discussion, sorry to interrupt you, Diane. Do you want to finish?
no, I'm just saying, we're targeting, you don't want to target the business owners. Everybody is benefiting from this.
I want to make sure that we're being very deliberate and focused on what problem we're actually trying to solve, right? Because I see kind of like 3 or 4 things getting mixed up in all the discussions and the articles of it. You know, if this is about Main Street sustainability, they have their own board of directors, and it's sort of not the role of government to interfere on what Main Street sustainability is. If it's that the borough is not properly funding Main Street, we give 12,500 right now, which, you know, considering all that we do, we should probably put on the table. That is an absolute conversation we should have. It's about you know, without naming names, but let's just say Olivia, if there's one person working really hard, and I think we all recognize how hard she works, then if we wanted to use taxpayer funds towards that, like then there's a conversation we could have about a borough employee role or something like that. And if it's a conversation about a business district, a bid or a SID, you know, I want to make sure that any conversation with that is about the long-term benefit of the community, not about one individual, not about one organization, because that could fund Main Street, but it doesn't necessarily have to fund Main Street, and that develops a whole mechanism that has its own board and its own funding. And so, like, I just think we have to be very careful about what problem we're actually trying to solve here, because that would lead us to different solutions.
There's, what Main Street is, I mean, when you set up a SID, it's not Main Street, it's a whole new group, it's a whole new organization that would hire Olivia, like if she has a marketing or another marketing company. So it's not going directly to the Main Street organization, it creates its own that's made up largely of the business owners. And 2 council people, and I mean, it's all set up by ordinance, by law, of how you have to do a SID. And it is related to government. I mean, it is a government, we have to create it. We create it, and then we would designate who is the, whatever you call it, that operates.
Management. It's a managing master, SACHC as a governing body, because it's a non-government organization that will be running government based
So, but the thing that you said, Mary, I think is important, at least it is as I'm trying to untangle this and sort of. I think you're right. It's an organization set up by the businesses to help the businesses
Think
govern.
of it like an HOA.
I know. I'm not hearing overwhelmingly from the businesses to move this forward.
That's what we're doing right now, or Main Street is doing, and some of the business owners are going around to each other and they're getting.
It gets to Al's point, right? Untangling, because there's a lot of things that are conjectured and tangled up here. The note of this has nothing to do with this. You are.
I'm not
You are
personal.
great.
I'm not,
You are
it's not
great.
personal.
This is not, so I think it needs to be purposeful, to your point, what problem are we trying to solve?
Right.
If the problem is a business owner problem, and the business owners are here saying, I want to solve this problem, this is the entity to solve the problem.
I think the problem is that Olivia's been working very hard for the past 5 years for free. And the organization, Main Street, that she's created has been doing a tremendous amount of business, good for the entire community. And she needs help with funding. And I think that we should all, as a community, not as targeting just one segment of the community, look at how we can help that group continue to grow. I don't think it's a sin, but I think something has to be done.
But I think that's a slippery slope, because we've got community in crisis in town also, right? If
We have the
they're
mayor.
not sustainable,
I mean, how many hours is the mayor working 80 hours a week too?
so are we.
Yeah, I get that big check.
I mean, there's, there's a lot of things, but I think, Al, that's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation now, is what do we want to talk about in, whether it's on the 25th or a future meeting? What is it that we are focusing on as council?
Well, I think when on the 25th, you can get, there's other things. You could do a tiny little SID, hardly any money at all from the businesses, and we get more out of the tax base. There's all different ways you can finance it. I think the issue is they need sustainable money. Like right now, the weeds are all growing all over the center of town again because Main Street had taken that on because we don't keep up with it. The business owners don't keep up with it. And now they've run out of money from their brands to do it. So.
Disputed at the point of
Then we
communication
have-
officer.
Right.
Person-
Okay, but that's a much bigger
Main
problem.
Street should be within the borough, and Olivia should be an employee of the borough, and we should pay her salary. I'm just throwing things out. I'm not married to anything.
That's why that's my problem situation.
No, I know.
That's why- why you saw-
Exactly, because
Yeah.
when you talk to the business owners say, what's the benefit from my side for paying in, right? What am I getting for this
Yes.
money? And that question is still yet to be, 100% solved, right? I mean, yes, there's marketing events, yes, there's people that come to town, but the great majority of people that you hear from, they come to town, they go to the event, they leave. They don't necessarily patronize, the businesses,
Yes.
the restaurants, I guess, maybe,
I think they do.
but. Well, but this isn't for what we think, that's why I'm asking for the information back.
And that's what we're gonna get at the next meeting. That's.
Okay, but we've
that's
asked for it a long time ago, so I didn't know that any of this was happening, so that's great, if we're gonna get this information, the benefits that are coming to the business, Olivia, you don't look so convinced.
No, I
that
don't know if
that's
am I allowed to say something? Can I just say?
The mayor's going to may speak.
Okay, yeah. Right now, from where we stand, the ball is actually in your court based on what you're actually asking. What do you want to do? And that's kind of what we are here wondering what it is that you would like to do. Do we move forward in some capacity? Yes? Cool, let's do it. Let's figure it out. Do we just nix it and just be done? Fine, then that's what we have to do. To continue the Main Street program portion of things, the requirement of the program is to have a paid executive director. Whether it's part-time or full-time, that's one of the requirements. They've let us start on this path with the intention of having that happen later. So that's why the whole organization is in jeopardy, because at some point, Main Street won't be able to continue either if there's no sustainable.
But
person around.
downtown Bernardsville can.
Downtown Bernardsville will switch names. Downtown Bernardsville will switch names.
So
Not Main Street. Yeah, sorry, I'm so sorry, that makes everything.
It doesn't necessarily have to have a Main Street designation.
That's.
Right, we could continue doing what we're doing, but, the designation gave us $75,000 last year to do some
So
work,
without
and
the
then more
designation,
this
you
year.
can't get the money.
Correct. Right, it's just like Transit Village, like you get access to more things as a result of being a part of a program, right? So what's important for this conversation to continue is for us to understand what we're talking about here. Is it a tiered program? You know, do we start with a small portion? Maybe we reduce the rate significantly or whatever that looks like, or, you know, I don't know, or we don't do the actual assessment portion until year 3, or, I mean, there's a lot of potential options. So that's where we're trying to understand what that looks like, so that we can say, here you go, these are all the packages. This is a sample type of programming list, because we don't know what kind of programming we can do unless we know what the budget is. So I can tell you, oh yeah, marketing and events and all this stuff, but those are just ideas until we have something on paper.
So my, and I
And
understand,
what about being an employee? What was it?
I don't, for the Main Street program to work, it still has to be a separate C3 nonprofit.
Right, okay.
Like, and even the SID also is recommended like all of these programs recommend highly to be a separate C3 nonprofit. So to be a borough employee, I have no idea. That's a little bit out of my jurisdiction to figure out like what the tax implications are with all of that. I don't really know how that jives, but again, that's something we can look into and.
But if we were to Main Street and we weren't a SID, downtown Bernardsville, we can be employed.
Right, so we've been a C3 since 2020 officially. Before that, we were a C4, but we've been established as a nonprofit since we pretty much started. So if need be, the whole organization would dissolve and you would have to create an economic development office like a lot of other towns might do. But without the backing of, we had like 20 volunteers on all our committees. So, you know, it's a grassroots effort. So without that backing, you know, things change.
So the first problem, what we need to solve is, do we want to keep the Main Street designation? Because if that's the case, it comes with certain requirements, as Olivia is explaining, right?
That's a great point, because that's the question I would have then. If we want to keep the Main Street designation, do we have to have a bid?
No.
No, I thought I just.
We can fund it.
Executive director.
does the Main Street Division have their own board of directors? Right. So philosophically, and listen, I very much, I think we're very used to groups coming and asking the borough for funds, without a doubt, right? But I guess just like philosophically, I know like this is philosophically the reality, but I just don't, if we were having a conversation in 2 weeks or 4 weeks and we were interviewing, what I would ask is, why is it the responsibility of government to figure out the financial solvency for an independent civic organization and not the board of directors of that civic organization? Right, so like philosophically, that's what I can't get over. Now, I do think the borough certainly benefits enormously from the work that Main Street does, and other than the mayor, you are the hardest working person in Bernardsville, right? So I think we do have to have a conversation as to what the borough's role in providing for that solvency, but it is not really, I mean, the board of directors of that civic group, in any civic group, community in crisis or a chamber or anything like that, it's up to them to decide on the financial solvency of that group.
Yes, I will say the benefit of a SID, Main Street, Transit Village, a number of things, all of these things working together independently, whatever the case may be, is the increase in tax revenue. And not because you're charging more in tax, but because the values increase, and whether that's home values increasing, whether that's more businesses coming into town and paying into the system, whether that's more employees in the system, and therefore, you know, there's taxes on more employees because the unemployment rate's changing. I mean, the list continues. There's a number of reasons why the work that an improvement district or a Main Street, again, a combination of all of them directly benefits the borough specifically, because the revenues at the end of the day will increase as a result of the work that is being done.
Yeah, it's a little different than a civic, you know, or like a community in crisis, because they're dealing with a specific health issue, which may or may not affect us directly. What Main Street is doing is really, it's increasing our property values. It's helping the businesses by bringing people to town, teaching them marketing skills. You know, I mean, just from ladies' night, I heard from a bunch of businesses that they were shocked at how many people were here in the middle of August for an event. But it's more than events. It's the beautification. It's the, you know, assist maybe small loans for a startup. getting signs,
Facade grant
you know,
for
yeah.
improving, building facades.
Like what Sid did during COVID is because they had this money, they gave grants to the businesses who were losing money, right, to close. They gave $5,000 grants to people to get them over the hump so they could stay in business. That's what a successful Sid does. It's much more than just, events and parties and,
And
So, but again, we're tangling up two things that we're relating, but I'm not sure we're relating. Main Street, the organization is what does the things for the community. The CID is the mechanism to pay for it.
Yes.
The CID itself does nothing other than to provide a payment mechanism.
well, no, it's got its own.
You decide what you want the city to do.
Let's see, that's,
It has to have its own board, and the board has to be made up of largely property owners. And they have to give a budget to us every year. They have to account for what they use the money for. It's very regulated.
But it's, there's a whole lot of tangled bureaucracy.
We're not. Well, we are. We collect the taxes and give them to them. We collect the taxes. We're involved. That's, it just gets added onto their bills.
It's more tax.
Only to the.
Well, it's an assessment, that's.
Well-
the difference. I know, I get it.
Population, it's like an HOA, you live in a community that has an HOA, everybody puts in and everybody benefits. If the whole place needs a new roof, everybody.
But everybody should put, then everybody should put in, then we should have a referendum to see if everybody wants to put in. And then take a look, like we do open space, and fund it like we do open space.
I think there's.
And then everybody.
I think there's a tiered decision here.
It's,
Tier number one is Main Street, Bernardsville funding. Yes, no, how much?
Well, designation of Main Street versus Main Street Bernardsville.
Yeah, so are we gonna designate, are we going to fund it directly from the borough more than the 12,500 that we have currently?
Well, in order to do that, Olivia, the position you have to have somebody paid, you're supposed to have a paid employee.
I know.
If we keep the designation, so then you would have to have somebody, we would have to pay to have somebody.
Otherwise, we let the designation go and just keep Main Street and donate. And
No.
Then you're losing a lot of funding in that. There's a lot of funding.
then you're losing 75,000 that they just got for a grant, or 25,000, or whatever they.
Go back to the original point, that's the first decision that has to be made.
Right.
Because whether we go from 12 to 50 to $1 million, right, and we're not gonna move on.
No, we're not Somerville, Somerville. is a million.
That's the first decision, then the decision is really through a variety of mechanisms, well, how are we going to generate the revenue? It can come out of general funds, it can come out of, you can come from a CID, as taxing, there's a mechanism to raise the revenue. Or it can just come from surplus in next year's budget.
And you're looking at what, 175,000? That's what we're talking about for a budget for a year.
Well, not
That's-
which scale of thing.
That's a suggested amount.
Scale.
It certainly does not have to be that, and let everybody go to how we can just program.
I'm new to what I want, to what I think I can see. What is raised and what is the benefit to the community for the raise? Because that's really what we're deciding here, and the answer is we want 175 or we want 50 or we want 12.5. Then we can figure out how to fund it.
But the funding doesn't have to come from government. I mean,
It does not have to come from there.
right. And I think we're trying to figure out what the mechanism is. I mean, I would want to know if we start to, no matter what category we go down, do those business owners who say they want to sit, do they give to Main Street Bernardsville right now or downtown Bernardsville right now? Do they donate to them? How many residents gave? Like, in other words, as a community, you should be able to figure out a way to come up with the 125, 150, 175, whatever the number is. And I think eventually provide an opportunity for them to even raise more. I mean, when you spoke with me, I was like, well, why isn't every real estate agent giving to Main Street Bernardsville, right? I mean, if that's what it's doing, they should, like we should.
Well, that's why I think that it should come from everybody.
Right, that's my point.
That it should come from one targeting group.
Yeah, I
It doesn't necessarily mean that they're the ones getting that, the benefit
The benefit.
either.
I believe the general residents get more of the benefit from businesses. Would you agree with that?
Right now, as it stands, yes, the CID would encourage more support for the businesses directly and then provide them with an actual tangible ROI.
But if they don't want that, they shouldn't have to be forced to participate in it. That's.
I get that. It boggles my mind that a business wouldn't want to have more business, but
No,
I,
but like ladies night out, right? The mayor's talked about it a couple times, how many people were there and how many, but the businesses had to donate to that. They had to participate in it, they had to, well, that's provide services. But this is what, but you have to do that, and then all the people come, and the benefit that the business owners get from that, from what I've heard and speaking to quite a few of them, is the business that gets generated doesn't come back to all the money that they paid out in order to participate in those events. And it's not just that one, I'm just picking on it because it was just recent, but it's all of the events. They don't seem to get the return. And, but again, what we have to separate is events from the rest of what a Main Street designation does, or services they provide.
Well, and you just said something that I'm not clear on. Oh, sorry, no, well, because if creating a SID is gonna create a new layer of services and benefit for the business owners.
Right.
We have to be clear in what those are,
Well, that's.
and not in concept. I don't wanna hear what Somerville did, I don't wanna hear what everybody else did, this is what the SID will do.
So we were given, and I believe, Steve prepared the slides. And the slide that's really the one I want us to all look at is the one that says potential services. And maybe what we can do, each one of us, is prioritize what they mean to us, and if a SID would accomplish that, or if a borough employee would accomplish that. So in other words, to me, the number one is commercial vacancy reduction. And that would be a specific measurable thing. Right now, we have 20 stores empty, and if we implement a SID in 3 years, we could have it expire in 2 years, or we could have it expire at a certain time and then say, guess what, our commercial vacancy now is a lot less than that, and that's a good thing, and that's a measurable.
But see, I
It
don't
won't
see
stay-
how,
it
I don't
won't-
see how a SID can do that.
it won't stay that way if you expire the SID after a couple of years.
Exactly, but
So
I'm
it's
just
a,
saying.
it's a
but you
long-term
can
strategy, it's
decide-
not a short-term strategy.
You can decide, if they made progress.
I said that to everybody.
Yeah, and.
I actually have that.
Yeah, not every meeting.
So
I printed
if
them
we
out.
can just, if we can just say, these are the things that, honestly, most of these have come up at a council meeting. One of them came up tonight, parking. Like, could a SID address or use their funding to help us have a planner or someone who can resolve the
Well,
parking?
the way they only find it.
The way
A
funding is
lot of stuff are
This,
responsibility.
that's
Yeah, but so basically, we will be giving our sovereignty away to an NGO.
Well, we could say no, and we could say, listen, we need to hire an employee that can do signing and wayfinding, commercial vacancy reduction, and
Yeah,
parking.
we still need a person to do that, so.
But it's another option, another avenue. Yeah, that was one of my options too. Yeah.
So I think giving specific reasons why this is good for us, or why something else is better for us, for each one of these, street lighting. I mean, like Diane said,
So
we're borough employees,
Yes.
and we do that, but
Exactly.
now you have someone managing just that.
But that shouldn't be coming, that should be coming from the borough's responsibility, not from an outside source.
Well, that's what I think about the weeds too.
Well, the weeds.
They force the commercial business owners to do what they're supposed to be doing.
I mean, I think a lot of the stuff is stuff that the borough should be doing, and it.
And we aren't.
Well, that's just it, we don't do it, well, maybe we
Why?
need to get people to do it.
Why don't you do it?
Exactly.
No,
revenue.
because it costs you money, or you don't have
It
enough
costs
people to
time
do it?
and money.
It costs time, these all things cost time and money.
Right, so the purpose of organizations in all of these capacities is to appoint individuals, a person, and an organization, whatever, to help offset that. The banner's example of that. Yes, okay, we had to work on some design elements, but the idea is that now Public Works doesn't do that anymore.
But to that point, Olivia, so when, as a borough, I mean, anyone that's been on finance committee, has been through this in multiple cycles, when we trade off priority time and dollars, that's ultimately what happens there. There aren't enough of any of that. right? I mean, you were part of the library conversation. There aren't enough dollars. So if we're transitioning dollars in different ways, we're either raising revenue, new tax, which I know that there are folks that don't like the concept of new tax. If you can increase revenue, we just talked about increasing revenue through fees, right? It's a really hard conversation. So when you ask, well, why don't things happen? Why doesn't the sidewalk happen at X location?
I mean, I'm sure if we were giving out $175,000 or any amount of money, I'm sure Fran and everybody else from every department in the borough would be in a line saying, I can use that.
I've asked them that for the last 10 years.
So what's the priority, right? So I think what we need to do as council is we need to understand what our strategy is. What do we want? What problem are we trying to solve? What problem do we want to solve? And we need to come up with that for ourselves. And then we need to tackle the situation and say, okay, what are each of the questions that need to be answered in order to get to this decision? So I think we need to be focused about it.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have, like, and obviously there's a lot of people in the public that have views on it, you know, encourage people to reach out to us. I think it's a worthwhile discussion to have at a meeting. You know, I do think it's a meeting we should all be there for. And so it's the next meeting, not the 25th. I think that's good. I think you've gotten a lot of information, right? Like the mayor sent this information today. We could, I think Olivia said we got information from you. No, the census, you resent the same thing we got 4 months ago.
Yeah.
Okay, well then.
And I really don't want to push this off any longer. We already changed Steve twice with his availability.
We need
I don't
Steve.
think I need Steve.
I don't see Steve. We hired Steve to help us because he's an expert in this and he's been doing it for a really long time in multiple locations and he's experienced businesses who are thrilled with their programs. So it's just a perspective that is helpful to understand and be able to answer questions that I might not be able to answer for you.
So, but the reason why I said I don't need Steve, because right now the options on the table is taxing the businesses. That's currently the fund.
There's a lot of.
That's one of the options. If the purpose of the SID is for the business owners, and I think we all agree with it, we're not just debating whether Main Street, none of that is being debated, we need a SID. I want to hear the business owners say to me that I think we need this. I don't need Steve.
Well, and that's in the works.
That's part of it too. That is
And
absolutely part of
are
it.
they gonna come here to the meeting? The question is, what's the percent? Do you want 40% to say it? Do you want 60%? What number is gonna make it?
I want some, I need to hear some. I mean,
You already have Brenda Kernan, who owns has the biggest assessment.
Brenda has a lot of weight in this.
Do they give money to the organization right now?
They
I
have
mean-
time right now. I'm the property manager on one of our committees.
So what you're trying to eliminate really is the free rider problem, that once people if people start to give money, that others won't free ride on those donations, right? It's the classic free rider problem in any situation. But still, like, as I've said, I think we have to be very cautious to establish like a new governmental mechanism that is, then to your point, Diane, independently using taxpayer dollars to direct towards any purpose that doesn't have direct oversight on council. And like, that's why I was more interested in exploring some of these solutions, like increasing our funding, the executive director, et cetera, before we go and put on a new whole mechanism or an organization with its own set of, you know, that could take a long time to establish. I mean, if we passed it as a council, then they have to appoint a board of directors. And the board of directors has to figure out whether Main Street is its secretary or a separate business corporation is its secretary. Then they can appoint the executive director. And to me, that still doesn't get to where we have to get to, which is we have a sustainability problem that, in my mind, really isn't the purview of government to really say how the solvency of this organization. But I do think we have a role, considering all the ROI that we have, return on the investment that we have, that you've talked about. I do think giving 12,500 is very paltry considering the amount of work that you do. And I think we should be doing more. But I'm not convinced that a new government mechanism is the right way to do it, because in my mind, once that's on, it's on. And like, to paraphrase a quote, there's only two ways to achieve eternal life. One is through faith, the other was to become a government program. And so I'm hesitant to do it until we've explored other options. And And that's personally like my, general philosophy.
I have a question. Is this for, office property owners also?
All commercial,
Commercial.
in the designated district.
It's not, if they have residential up top, it's not on that.
The residential is not counted
They
in.
don't- Okay, so it might not be someone who has a property that is used for leased to business, it could be just office space.
If it's zoned as commercial, then it is assessed. But Rich Steinberg's building, for example, the top floor, the whole half of the building essentially is residential. So only half of the building is actually being assessed in this whole situation.
And what is the district that you're looking at from where to where?
It's the main districts along 202. So right now the Claremont Road District, what is that called? DCL or something like that. That is currently not in there. I know that there's some businesses along Quimby Lane that were not interested. If it's a whole street, there's an option of taking that street out. But again, they don't get the services. So if we're working on an app, it's free for everybody in the district, let's say, to be a part of the app, to be on there. But if you're not in the district, then you have to pay to be on it. That would be, so you don't get the free elements that come with being a part of the district. It's really what that would come down to.
All right, next week, for the next meeting, we will have Stephen come, because I think he's been listening. Is he on?
Yes.
So I
There
think
he
he
is.
knows now, there he is, what to prepare for the next meeting, and kind of maybe get us a little more focused and organized as to what direction to go in.
I mean, if there's any questions specific from council that you want answered, I guess we should send those in as well, right?
Yeah, you want those in advance or, yeah,
I mean, it would be good so they can be prepared to answer them, right?
Yeah, that would be helpful. Maybe send them to Nancy. And you can get them to Steve or Olivia if there's something that, or
And to
particular
add to
data.
your point, a specific plan, right, for.
It's
for
hard.
filling out the-
I'm thinking about what you're saying. For me, the questions are out of order. Because the first question is about Main Street designation, Main Street Bernardsville. And how much does it need to function properly?
Oh, me, like a budget wise.
Yeah, so, because all we're talking about with the SID is some kind of funding mechanism that may have incremental value that is undefined.
Well, they told us that it was 175,000, that's the number that they requested originally.
That was the assessment amount based on a
Right.
specific percentage,
Yeah.
but that can,
But it was based on the executive director salary, the operating expenses, and I think there were 4 or 5 line items in there.
yeah, just generally speaking on what a bid could be sustained at, it's about that.
I mean, it could be just 60,000 and then they have to raise the rest, or, or you could do that the first year, and then the next year, maybe it goes up more, see how it works, and then the next, it doesn't have to be like, right now, everything or nothing.
no, but so if we're on the 25th, is the intention of Steve to present to us data, present back what he's found since the last presentation he gave us?
Yeah.
And then we're going to have a discussion again
Right.
on this as to how we want to move forward, not to talk about options, Steve. I
Well,
don't
he
think we're
can
looking for,
explain them, he can explain how they.
but I think there's more than just the option Steve's
Or-
coming up with that we're
Yeah,
talking.
but he could tell you how some other towns have done it, because I think there's 9 other towns like our size that, and I don't think any of them are the same, I don't think any 2 are the same.
Like, I think there's almost 90 cities in the whole state and they all have their own
They're
different
all
ways
different.
of doing what works.
So, you come up with, like, if we come up with an idea and he could say, well, so-and-so does that, and it didn't work, or this town does it and works really well, you can kind of get some expertise on the options we come up with.
Yeah, I struggle on that one. I like. I wasn't.
Well, no, he gets nothing from this, he's been paid to do this work, and then he's gone.
Okay.
He gets nothing.
He's already gone way above and beyond what we've already
Yeah.
asked him to do, so
It's
it's
no
not
skin
actually
off
getting
his
anything out
back,
of
they
it.
don't do it, he's got paid for doing his work, and he's done, yeah. All right, good, moving on, any other unfinished business? Any new business? right. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
I will make the motion to go into
I'll
executive.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I don't think we're coming out.
We're not coming in? No, no, okay, so we will not do that. An early night. Thank you for those of you who were here.